even though it was posted for 5:30. All right, so right now I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Odessa City Council, September 8, 2022, to order. Up first, Pastor Steve is going to lead us in the invocation. Sir.
Our Heavenly Father, we just gather here together. We thank you, Lord, for all those who have come to serve. And Lord, as I think of September 11th, around the corner again, and the words of Benjamin Franklin, if a sparrow cannot fall to the ground without your notice, how can an empire rise and stand without your aid? So, Father, we want to thank you for your hand upon us. We want to thank you, Lord, for our first responders and all those in this country, Lord, that serve from the city here all the way to Washington. And Father, we need your guidance. The days are not easy, and Lord, we just need your help. And we can understand without you, we can do nothing, but with you, Lord, nothing is impossible. So we come thanking you for your blessings and asking for your grace and mercy in Jesus' name. Amen. To the flag, United States of America, and to the republic in which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up, agenda approval. If there are no changes, I'll entertain
I'll make
a
a
motion.
motion.
I have a motion, I have a second.
Second.
Seeing no further comment, let's go ahead and vote the approval of the agenda. Reset the board and we'll try it again. Got it? All right. I think vote is unanimous, so moved. All righty then. We don't have any proclamations or recognitions tonight, so we'll move right into public comment. I just want to remind everyone, you got 3 minutes. When you come up to the microphone, it's already on, so you don't have to touch nothing. Just state your name and your address. At about 2 minutes and 45 seconds, I'll politely ask you to wrap up your thoughts. And we do have a couple public hearings tonight, so if it's anything pursuant to the public hearings, withhold comments at this time for items on the public hearings, because you'll have an opportunity to address those issues at that moment. But otherwise, you can come up, any pet peeves, anything that's on the agenda here other than a public hearing, you're welcome to speak on it. And I want to remind everyone that you have another opportunity at the very end of the meeting, before I hit the gavel to send us all home, to make comment on what we've done or what we didn't do during the course of the meeting. So, without further ado, is there anyone in the audience that would like to come forward at this time for public comment? Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Drew Mitchell. I live at 110 Gulf Shore Drive, Unit 427 in East Pass Towers. I'm the guy that's been raising so much cane about Noriega Point. It's nice to meet you. To keep my comments at 3 minutes, I'm going to read. It's not going to be an eloquent presentation. But to give you some context, the first thing I'd like to share with you is that there's probably 1,000 people a day coming to your park. I think it's a reasonable assumption. They come in with beer, sandwiches, snacks, and I'm also assuming that during the course of the day that they are going to pee and poo about a half a gallon of something out. So 1,000 people times a half a gallon is 500 gallons a day of raw sewage hitting that point, your park, and our waters. Let's do that times 200 days a year. That's 100,000 gallons of raw sewage at your park. And there's not a restroom in sight, not a trash can in sight. There's not a city service anywhere down there. And so this has been going on for a couple years. As I explained to the city attorney, it's not my intent here to come and try to shut this park down. I want to bring something to the city's attention because as I've come to the city staff with all my concerns and with some policies out of your own document, which is the Noriega Point restoration and recreation project, I think you're in violation of your own policies and codes down there. But I will tell you that out of 26 emails and 2 phone calls, exactly 0 people from the city staff contacted me. 0, which I find stunning. This board is accountable to the people. I'm one of the people. I want to talk to you about something that's a real problem over there. But we'll get to that. So, but in this document, it says, and I'll be brief, that the publicly funded projects for public access to the shoreline shall provide necessary support, facilities, and services. Furthermore, it says, and these sanitary facilities shall be provided and shall be as near to the bathing areas to ensure patron use. It continues on to read, and the park shall be open daily, and according to the signage at Noriega Point Park, is open from dawn to dusk. Your park is open 24 hours a day. They're drinking beer, they're smoking weed, they're having little parties down there. They're watching their fireworks. But that park is not being operated as it was intended to be operated, and it's not consistent with the operation of the other parks. In my discussions with city attorney, he was very polite. I've been told that there is a permit that's very close to being acquired and that the builder next door must build the road within 9 months. Well, it's August. Let's assume that she's wrong by 90 days. That's 3 months, and then he has 9 months to build it. That's 12 more months. I'm going to be standing here again next summer at the end of the year going, y'all are putting another 100,000 gallons of sewage on Noriega Point because you don't have a restroom. It's really ridiculous. And this has been going on since COVID. Everybody came back from COVID. They closed the other side of the pass. They came to that place. And the city is marketing Noriega Point as a destination for the tourists. So it's not my friends that are going out there. It's your tourists that are coming in here. So I feel it's y'all's responsibility to deal with them. So with that being said, I brought copies if anybody would like this, and I have highlighted the pertinent points, and my emails are well documented. My question to the city council is, if I was a developer and I said, hey, I want to open up a business on Noriega Point Park, and I'm going to have 1,000 people come in daily, and I'm going to have food and beer and all the stuff, and by the way, I'm not going to have a restroom, y'all would shut me down so fast. Mr. Destin, you have a restaurant. You know what it's all about. Okay. I really want to, I have asked the question of how you're operating the park currently without these things, because everything in this document says shall, not may, or when it's convenient, it says shall. So I'm encouraging y'all to do something and get some services out there so your tourists can use the restroom properly. Thank you.
Thank you. Like I said, there's another opportunity at the end of the meeting. Anyone else? Seeing none, is anybody queued up? Catherine, any comments? Well, seeing there's none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment period, and we shall move on to item number 3, our consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion, I have a second. Take a vote. You didn't see the ninja sneak in, did you? Rodney is here. The vote is unanimous. So moved.
Thank you, sir. First item is regarding the continuing financial audit services, and the committee was formed to review the submissions that were made, and Ms. Crystal Strickland here is here to bring this forward.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. In June, we posted applications to combine an audit review selection committee, and Mr. Bagby was appointed as the chair of this committee. The duties of the committee included evaluation of establishing factors to evaluate audit services and to review the request for proposals. The selection committee met on July 18th. We opened the bids that were received, and on July 19th, we issued the RFP. August 18th at 2 p.m., the clerk opened all of the bids that we received. We received only 3 bids. On August 22nd, the auditor selection committee met, and they ranked all of the proposals in an open public meeting. And they ranked them. The winner turns out to have more Florida experience than an existing audit firm. So they were chosen primarily for their extensive government financial audit experience within the state of Florida. And so tonight, we're coming with a recommendation and a request to negotiate with Malden and Jenkins as the audit firm. So below here, you have a motion. I think there's a recommended motion in your packet, and if you have any questions, we're here to answer any questions.
Well, to start this discussion, I'd like to entertain a motion at this time.
Mr. Mayor, I move to authorize the city manager to engage Malden and Jenkins to conduct financial services audits for the fiscal years ending in 09/30/22, 09/30/23, and 09/30/24, with optional extensions to the audit fiscal years ending in 09/30/25 and 09/30/26.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Bagby, would
I
you
do.
like to share
I
with us
wanna-
as chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to just thank my fellow committee members, Marcy Bell, Jim Wood, and Tom Weidenheimer. And I really want to thank the staff who worked very hard. Crystal, obviously, worked very hard. Kyle and Ray helped move this along, and we didn't even have to do an interview meeting. It was fairly clear-cut if you go through the score sheet. So I think that's the good news. We have a great team. We had some great people helping us work on this. The only thing I was saddened by is we did not have a single, even after the staff reached out to 15 or 19 local CPA firms requesting that they offer a bid. And I just think that says a lot about how we're viewed. Hopefully, we're changing that, and I think we have been for the last couple of years, but by local businesses is maybe we're not that friendly. But hopefully, when we put another RFP out in 3 or 5 years, we'll get nothing but local businesses bidding on it. But thank you, Mr. Mayor. The team did a great job, and we're proud to make this recommendation.
All right, without any further comments, let's go ahead and take this to a vote. I have a motion and a second. Keep mashing the button. The vote is unanimous, so moved. Thank you. Lance?
Item 4B is regarding the annual renewal of the property and casualty insurance for the city as we near the end of our fiscal year. This is a housekeeping matter that comes up this time every year, and we can answer any questions the council may have on it.
We have a recommended motion there.
We do.
I'll entertain that at this time. Go ahead.
I move to authorize city manager to engage Florida Municipal Insurance Trust to bind workers' compensation insurance and to engage Public Risk Insurance Agency to bind all other lines of property and casualty coverage for fiscal year 2023.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second. Is there any discussion on this matter? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and take a vote. The vote is unanimous, so moved. Thank you.
Item 4C is an update to our strategic plan. If council remembers, back in January, we had our strategic visioning session in which the council decided on their strategic objectives and then actually adopted those objectives in the March timeframe of 2022. The staff has been waiting for the 4 workshops, budget workshops, to be completed so that we could update the remaining 3 sections of the strategic plan, and that is what is before you tonight for your consideration. Be happy to answer any questions.
Yes, thank you, sir. I'll entertain a motion this time for discussion.
I'll make a motion. I move to adopt the 2023 strategic plan as presented.
Do I have a second? I have a motion, I have a second. Ms. Abear. All right. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the approval of the strategic plan? Go ahead, Mr. Bagby.
When you look at the management objectives, that is Lance's draft metrics. So unless, and we can always revisit these, but if you have a problem or you see an area in the city that you want something measured, his performance or the staff's performance, since the staff works for him, it needs to be in the management objectives, or if you want it in a different format, the format that, just bullet format like I distributed last time, that's fine, but in my conversation with Lance, he said he wanted to make it part of the strategic plan, and so that way it would be approved every year. When you approve the update to the strategic plan, his metrics will change. So if there's something you don't see in there, please put it on the agenda at the next meeting, and we'll add it to the management objectives for 2023. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
My only
Go
question
ahead, Kevin.
is, this is a 5-year management objectives plan, but it's also going to be the annual chart. So, I mean, right, but if these are 5-year goals or objectives, how are we going to use this as a frame reference of an annual?
I
Evaluation.
think if you're going to make adjustments to it because another need arises and stuff like that, because we have a visioning session every single spring, every year, and certain things, certain emphasis change, stuff like that. So by approving this sets today's standard of the goals that the city would like to achieve, but we're going to have a couple new council members here in 4 weeks, and things arise, and so issues and emphasis change more than probably annually. So this is the starting point, and it can be adjusted. And like Mr. Bagby just extended and offered to all the council members, if something midstream needs to be adjusted or changed, it just needs to be brought up on the agenda. This isn't a definitive here. This is just an approval. This is where we are today, and this is going to be what we hold, to evaluate what's going on in our community. So today, this is what it is, but it doesn't mean it can be that 2 months from now or 3 months from now or the next visioning session next February.
Right, and I get that, but I'm just trying to understand how we're tying it to because that's not fair to the city manager if
Yeah.
we're going to change during the year his evaluation metrics.
Right. So I would say, my guess would be this is a carryover from his previous management objectives that he always did 5 years out. Objectives nearly universally are not nearly always 5 years out. Rarely are they 5 years out. An objective is something you can see the finish line, and he probably would best be served if he just took out 2023 to 2028, but I'll let him make that call. These are the 2023 management objectives. If you see in there, most of them, or about half of them, actually say, do this in 2023, or do this. Some of them could be, getting grants could be, but I would just take out the 2023 to 2028 if I were him. But it's his objectives, so I'll let him make that decision.
I'd be happy to strike that. If we don't, I can still produce these results for this specific year. So.
All right, seeing no further comment, let's go ahead. We have a motion, we have a second. Let's take it to a vote. Vote is unanimous, so moved. Thank you. Sir?
Next up, we have 4D, which is a Water Quality Improvement Fund being established, and we have Ms. Strickland again to brief you on that.
Yes, thank you. So this is really more of a housekeeping item. We've had these two different funds, these two different revenue sources coming into the city since one started in 1987, the second one started in 1995. They're both related to water quality in the harbor. So what I'm doing is they've been living in a capital project fund. I'm taking them out of the capital project fund and I'm moving them to a special revenue fund so that I can expend them for certain operating in accordance with the restrictions on these particular funds. So with that, I'm here if you have any questions.
I have a question. when these two funds were established, they were established for two different reasons.
That's correct.
And so, being a harbor guy, the hair rose up on the back of my neck immediately until I had an opportunity to read it more, because I just want to make sure that by doing this, because I could see the efficiency, and I'm all about efficiencies, but I just want to make sure that it doesn't lessen the capabilities to address harbor-specific issues, even though it says with the waterways of Destin.
No. They still have those same restrictions. The restrictions are not changing upon them. It just makes it, it's more of an accounting and a software issue, that if you have something in a 300 fund, that it has to be spent on capital projects, but some of this money is very specifically allowed for maintenance, which is an operating expense, and I can't do that when they're, anyway, it's a housekeeping accounting issue more, but the restrictions are staying the same. We're not changing those.
Mr. Destin?
The question, when I see the amended ordinance, I notice we've changed harbor to harbor in tidally affected waterways, in other words, all waterways in the city of Destin. Now, the reason that these ordinances were adopted, they were actually adopted at the request or order of the DEP, who said we had to have a funding mechanism and we had to clean up the harbor. And that was all tied to a harbor study and a harbor ordinance. And my question is, when we broaden this out into all waters, I suppose that includes Joe's Bayou and Indian Bayou and all the other waters, without any matrix that attaches the reasons that they will now be spent over there, I can see we could get into some kind of a legal issue. And so have we thought, and what direction and where did the direction come from to extend this ordinance to all waterways in Destin rather than the harbor, which was the original intent and was supported by all the documentation?
Go ahead, Kim.
I'm going to let Kyle answer it because he drafted it and he's here on the computer.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, nice to be here virtually and switch places with Kim tonight. I know you guys would rather look at her in the dais than me, but to answer Councilmember Destin's question, the intent of the resolution is merely to change the restrictions on the funds from only capital expenditures to both capital and operational expenditures. It's not meant to widen what those funds can be spent on for different waterways. Maybe there's some language that needs to be clarified to that effect, but that was not the intent anyway.
Mr. Destin brought up, Kyle, the issue of the virtually a contract with the Department of Environmental Protection and the requirements of storm, because they helped, we built stormwater abatement projects, and that money was earmarked to help run them and maintain them, if I'm correct. Does that affect that relationship or that commitment to FDEP? Is that affected by the changes in this ordinance? I think that's what Mr. Destin wants to know the most, or speak for yourself.
And I would also point out that these net positive environmental effect taxes only apply to commercial marinas. There are no commercial marinas in Destin other than in the harbor. Now, there may be some along the bay, but there most definitely won't be any in Joe's Bayou or Indian Bayou or the other bayous. So you are taking money that's created for the one area, and not that I have a problem with it. You know, we can probably use that money over there too. I just see that if someone who wasn't happy paying their fee said, you're going to use this in an area that's not even covered by my commercial development, that could be a problem. So, you know.
Yeah.
But I would also add on that one, we do charge the net environmental benefit to marinas that are not commercial. We do charge them on residential docks.
Do you charge them in residential areas? All residential docks are not charged the fee as far as I know, or do they?
We do charge them on residential docks, but I'll let Louis, because I can see he wants to push his microphone.
No, we do not charge on residential docks. Only commercial docks.
Stand corrected.
Gee, I'm right? That's strange.
So
Anyway, that looks like a legal problem to me.
yeah, and we have a motion and a second. We're having the discussion now. So What I see is there's some hesitancy here, Kyle, because you wrote the ordinance, to make sure that before we would pass something like this or enact it, that we'd have to make sure that our agreement with FDEP would not be compromised and/or violated by trying to streamline and make our bookkeeping a lot more efficient. So would you like to maybe make us?
Well, I see that our misconduct is discussed with the staff. Is that not the right answer?
I think I was right, and I'll let Louis come back now because the building official is there.
We will need to clarify this, because there's an impact on the harbor, and then there's elsewhere. So I just need to go back to the office and clarify that for you.
Okay.
And I think you might be well served. There's really just a minor accounting issue here that relates to the difference between capital expenditures and operating expenditures that I think Crystal is trying to make more flexible. I think we do comply with those ordinances and agreements with FDEP. And Crystal, I don't know if you can explain that accounting issue a little bit better than I can, maybe. But I think that's all we're really trying to correct. Of course, we'd be happy to take a second look at this if that's how council wants to move forward.
No, you're correct, Kyle. The intent was to stay with the original MOUs and ordinance that we have for the location for usage and for the allowable uses. The stormwater funds from DEP, they were stormwater funds for mitigation in the Destin Harbor. The memorandum of understanding said that after we built these stormwater cleanouts, that we should maintain them each year with the remaining funds in that fund, which in maintenance or cleaning out those stormwater discharges that discharge into the harbor, that's an operating expenditure. And so in order for me to reasonably expend those remaining funds to do exactly that, to maintain those cleanouts that discharge into the harbor, I just need to move it out of a capital project fund into a different type that falls under the operating section of the account codes.
Yeah, well, the accounting question doesn't bother me. It's changing the ordinance that I have my issue with. Can we and should we? In the net positive environmental benefits are not just cleaning out those structures. They are.
No, that's correct, and those will continue to be used for the
Okay,
capital expenditure.
I feel uncomfortable expanding it until I feel that is something we're allowed to do, to collect money from one area and spend it in another. So, I'll make a motion to table this to the next meeting to give our attorneys time to look at it a little closely.
I would ask you to make it to the first meeting in October.
No problem with that at all.
Okay, so this has been tabled time certain to the first meeting in October?
That's good.
All right. All right, go ahead and vote, council. You can have the microphone once we get this vote. Ayes have it, so moved. Go ahead, Mr. Bagby.
I just want to make sure, Crystal, that you weren't bringing this because we were trying to move or shift monies before the end of the fiscal year into something. And if you are, because everybody over there is shaking their head, then you can bring back a budget amendment at the next meeting that allows us to shift that money wherever you think that money needs to be shifted. I understand there's a budgetary concern, but the legal concern overrides that budgetary concern, and we can fix the budgetary concern, I believe. Can we not?
Yeah, okay, so in the budget that we're going to look at in public hearing number 1 assumes that this will be accomplished by October 1st, but that's okay. And just to reiterate, the intention was not to expand the location of usage of these funds. The intent was just to change the account coding. So the NPEB in the definition, it says that we can also use this for water quality, I don't remember the word, but it was more of an operating type expenditure as well as capital expenditures that improve water quality in the Destin Harbor.
Okay, and that's all good. I just
we'll-
need you to
if we
answer a
can-
short question. Do we have to do this or take some action before the end of this fiscal year?
It would be better if we could accomplish it
No,
at the next
not
meeting.
past this. We're not going to pass this till October. Is there money in a fund right now that needs to be moved to another fund right now before the end of the fiscal year?
Not before the end of the fiscal
Okay,
year.
thank you. Then we'll see you in October on that.
Go ahead, Dewey.
And along those lines, if we simply change the underlined or blacked out back to what it said originally, then you could still accomplish what you want to budgetarily?
It's really a question for Kyle, don't
Yep.
you think? So Kyle, just, you may want to review the ordinances, the changes made, and see if we can't change some of the scratch marks and put the original language back in that makes that clear and doesn't put us in jeopardy of violating FDP. We'll wait till the next meeting for you to give you time to make those changes and/or recommendations, and we'll bring this back up and have the same discussion and vote on it then. That's suitable with everyone? We've tabled it?
Vote on table.
I thought we did.
I thought we did.
Yeah, we tabled it.
6-1.
So that's basically, Kyle, you understand what the council's looking for? Okay.
Yep. We'll take a second look at it and make sure that the intent is a little clearer there.
All right, well, let's move on. Lance?
Thank you, sir. Council had asked staff to bring back an update on converting a baseball field, or bringing the baseball field over at the elementary school up to standards that would meet high school regulations. We did that a couple meetings ago, and then we promised that we would bring back the information regarding potentially converting the Barracuda field here at Morgan Sports Center over to a baseball field that meets high school requirements. So we've brought that information forward for you tonight, and we have Ms. Lisa Firth and Mr. Ryan Reed here who put this report together to take you through any of it or answer any questions that you need.
There's no recommended motion here. It was more of an informative type thing. So if any council member would like to ask any specific questions of the folks here that can answer those, now's the time. Or I can entertain a motion.
I entertain a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to move to direct the city manager to convert the Barracuda field at Morgan Sports Center into a regulation high school baseball field, including expanding the infield further and adding grass infield for 90-foot bases, and to not put fencing or netting up at this time.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. So line up. Dewey, you're first.
Well, I would point out that this vote is not on the agenda as a vote tonight. I would also point out that the motion that we made on June the 20th, and I'll read it to you. Direct city staff to work with the Destin High School in acquiring a more permanent place for the baseball field and the sports facility for the high school. Also to direct the city staff to determine the exact cost to renovate the baseball field at Destin Elementary School to serve as a temporary solution and address the present need of the high school and to act as a bridge to a more permanent solution for the high school. And that was the motion. So in order to bring this back on the table under Robert's rules, of course, we would need a motion to reconsider made by a member of the prevailing side. I would think that that motion can be made, judging by the seconds that we got on that. But, that's what we need to do to bring this back on the table. And I also would ask the staff, what explorations did they make into the main thrust of this motion, which was to find a location for a permanent solution?
Ms. Firth?
Have we checked with looked at any property around the city, looked at any ability for us to go with the school and build a baseball facility for them?
Well, no, not really. We did let them know there was some land on the south side of the Destin Elementary School. Destin High School entertained that. I'm not sure if they are looking into it or not. The Okaloosa schools, when I talked to them, they're not interested in buying it at all.
Okay, so the main thrust of this was to look at that and to give us a price on the elementary school with temporary fix. And what bothers me the most about this is this was a motion made by the council. It appears we did not pursue the direct motion and policy direction of the council to try to look for a permanent solution. Instead, we went forward with putting the preparation for putting the field at Morgan Sports Center. We,
I think in the briefing material, Mr. Dustin, there was two options, maybe not the third about purchasing another piece of property, but they did give us, there's information there concerning
Yes.
redoing the school.
yes,
So
with all-
they
with
kind
all
of did
respect.
three-quarters of it.
They did one part of a three-pronged deal. And I understand they're under pressure to look at this, but when we make a direct motion and then it's not even adhered to in but 1/3 of 2/3, it bothers me greatly. I guess we went and discussed with the Destin Water users about amending the contract to put it there. We did a number of things to go, brought it to the Recreation Committee, after the council quite clearly voted to not go in that direction. When you read this motion, it's clear that that's not the direction we go in. The proper way to do it, and every council person has the ability here, is to put it back on the agenda with a motion to reconsider. And that's what we need to do tonight, because we clearly made a policy decision here in this motion on June the 20th. Didn't get carried out. And we're going to discuss that I'm going to discuss that with the staff shortly. And then they can explain to me why we make motions and they end up being meaningless. In any event, I would, point of order, Mayor, we need a motion to reconsider.
Do we vote on the original motion first?
You can't do that under Robert's rules without a
Okay.
motion to reconsider.
But that's assuming what you're saying is 100% correct, and I don't necessarily agree with everything you're saying, because they did consider options. They went to the elementary school, they presented that to us at the
That's
previous
one,
meeting,
yeah.
and then they went to the next step. So they're doing what we asked them to do.
Well, in any
So
event, we
so
still
I don't know if we have to reconsider anything.
to have this back on the table under Robert's rules, you need a motion to reconsider.
Mr. Bagby, your name was up. Let's go ahead and hear from you before we move
Well,
further.
I have a little different take, and I see both sides, but we approved the agenda, and this wasn't on the agenda. My understanding is they're coming to us next meeting to make their presentation, or make their proposal, or make their whatever. Is that correct? Or
That
at
is
some
correct.
meeting?
They were planning on being at this meeting. We went ahead and put the information on the agenda because I know the last meeting we didn't want to,
Well-
nobody wanted to wait. And then the football team has their first game tonight, so they decided to come to the next meeting.
Okay, they can come to the next meeting, and I think they should. But I came expecting a staff update on the direction that we gave them.
No motion.
And no motion, and there's no recommended motion. So now there's a motion on the floor, and all I'm saying is, we could have put it under council member's name, or we could have said, we could have amended the agenda before we started, before we approved the agenda, and said, hey, we were going to bring a motion on this item, okay? Because there's probably people on both sides that would want to be here if they knew that we were going to vote on this. And so this is a process thing for me. The second thing is, in the process, is whatever the motion is, or whatever we think we want to do, it ought to go to the Recreation Committee, okay? With the Recreation Committee, if you look at their minutes, voted unanimously, asking, I think, for one thing, and Ms. Trammell will be able to come up if she's not too busy back there and tell us what the Recreation Committee voted on. But my memory of reading the minutes this past weekend was that they wanted a date certain, and I agree with that. You know, if you want to rent,
There was
so-
two votes, though, 2 meetings.
Okay, well, yeah, but they did vote unanimously for a date certain, right? Okay, so my next thing, because I'm in the middle of doing my research. You know, we asked staff to do research. I'm doing my research. So I called Terry Roberts. Dewey probably knows her, Squirrel's sister-in-law or whatever. She was CFO of Okaloosa County School District. She is the CEO or CFO of Liza Jackson. She knows more about funding for charter schools than anybody else in probably Northwest Florida. And she gave me 30 minutes of her time, and I will tell you, I learned a hell of a lot. A couple of things I thought I knew, I didn't know. Several things I didn't know, I now know. And which I know if we start questioning up here, nobody knows, because we haven't had this discussion, and we can't have this discussion if we short-circuit the process. All I'm asking is table it to the next meeting or pull the motion, and let's have a vote at the next meeting on a proposed motion, but not tonight, not when the citizens of this community have been denied the opportunity on both sides to make their support or their lack of support present. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I'm going to stay in order here because I got a comment to that. Rodney?
Thank you, Mayor. My first question is,
You're next,
why is,
Kevin.
why is the staff under pressure to get this done?
Staff done, in deference to Mr. Destin, they just gave us a report without a motion, so they're actually doing their job. They're not done. So, you know, you kind of pressured them a little bit, but they haven't done anything wrong up to this point. I think we jumped the gun with the motion. Jim, you pointed that out eloquently, and so did Mr. Destin. You both did. So you brought up the motion to rescind. I think that's probably to reconsider, which is what we have no choice in that matter under Robert's rules. So that's where we'll go. I'll let you finish your thoughts, Mr. Braden. I got Mr. Schmidt next, but I just wanted to kind of make that clarified that it's on the agenda. I got it right here in my hand, but it's just a report. So I don't think the staff was expecting a motion and a vote either. Just to defend them a little bit. I think they're still in the process of doing their job and following our motion from our last meeting. Rodney?
Yeah, all that just went right over the top of my head. I don't know where all that come from or what that was all about. My question was just simple. Why is the staff under pressure to get this done? That was made a few minutes ago, the comment. Staff is under the gun, under pressure, something to get this done. It's not our problem, it's not staff's problem. So why is the staff under pressure to get this done? That was my first question. Or who told them to get it done? We want this done, we want a field up and running for this high school by a certain date. Somewhere, somehow. I don't remember that motion or that direction ever being done.
Mr. Destin read the motion. There's none of that in there, so you're right.
Yeah, so I don't know why I don't want the staff to feel pressured to get something done when, you know, their plate's full to start with. And I sit with Mr. Destin on his comments as well. Because there's several things, and one of them was that I was going to ask if, you know, if a motion was going to be made tonight, that, you know, where do they stand on their fees that they're behind on for the fields that they've been practicing on. So there's a lot of discussion made, and at least it said that there was, you know, part of this motion that we made last time that is not finished. Maybe it's hadn't had time for it, so we need to get that back. So, yeah, I think we need to put it back on the table, and that was my other question. Who is eligible to make that motion? Because has to be a,
Anybody that was on the prevailing side.
has to, and who is that?
No, it was 6-1. Mr. Schmidt is the only one that voted no, so everybody
Against
else
that motion.
on that motion.
So anyone other than Mr. Schmidt can make the motion to rescind.
Reconsider.
Well,
Okay.
Yeah, can I jump in on the Roberts Rule thing real quick? There's two separate issues, and Dewey's right on the motion to reconsider. Absolutely. There's also a motion to rescind. The city of Destin, the council has previously adopted very specific rules for rescission. Basically, if you wanted to consider a rescission, which then would allow you to take different types of policy actions at a future meeting, any member can make a motion to consider rescission tonight. If that motion passed, then it would be placed under that council member's name at the next agenda where the actual motion to rescind would be considered. So I just wanted to make sure you were presented with all your potential options tonight.
Mr. Schmidt, you were queued up. I'll let you make your comments, and then I'll entertain a motion to reconsider.
Sure. I was just going to add that we've made motions on a handful of items already under the same section. And just because the staff report doesn't have a recommended motion, I don't think means we can't make a motion. It's on the agenda because it's item number 4 E on the agenda. So it is on the agenda. The public asked if we could wait to do this until 2 more weeks. They did ask that. But surprisingly, the agenda got posted, and here it is. And now they didn't come because they're at a high school game, like you said, but they also understand that they were here the first night with 100 people, and it went the way it went. So they're okay if we voted tonight. But there's a report, there's all sorts of documents that staff put together, and, Mayor asked for motion, but I made a motion because this is the report. They provided with us all this information. So that's why I made a motion. I think I have every right to do that based on the agenda at hand.
But the people that want to oppose it did not come because it's a staff report, a staff update, that's all. There was no motion, nothing, no decision going to be decided, so.
Yeah, but we're doing property and casualty insurance, we're doing everything else. If people want to oppose it, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Just because it's
At this
high school.
moment in time, though, it's here and there. I'll entertain a motion to reconsider at this time.
I'll make the motion to reconsider.
I have a motion.
I'll second.
Do I have a second? Any further discussion on that? Do we make that time certain, Kyle, or just leave it as it is?
If the intent is to move it to the next meeting, or consider the item at the next meeting, then just say at the next regular meeting, we'll reconsider it.
Friendly amendment, or
Amend my motion
to the next meeting?
a little closer. No, till the next meeting.
Is that okay with the
Same
second?
second.
All right, so we have a motion. And no further discussion, let's take a vote. The vote is 4-3, so moved. Ayes have it.
Mayor, I would hate to be a party pooper, but I would make the observation that a non-agended vote under our rules needs 5 votes.
I was going to jump in and say the same thing, that this requires a supermajority vote.
Well, I'd like a clarification on the Roberts Rules of Orders on why I can't make my motion on the agenda item, Kyle.
So the,
Is it because this
I
is,
think that,
it's up for interpretation of Mr. Destin's understanding of if the motion was carried out, so.
yes,
would like to
I would
hear-
agree with you, Kevin. I think that some of the council feels that this is a policy decision that has not been fully implemented at this point. To reverse a policy decision is when these rules come into play. If it was more of a procedural matter or something else, then these rules would not be in play, and I think your motion would survive tonight. The substantive call, though, I think, is really the council. As the attorney, I cannot determine for you whether staff has fully carried out that policy implementation. So I think that's a council call tonight you have to make on the dais.
Well, seeing how the motion to reconsider failed for lack of a majority, a supermajority, where do we go next?
I'd like to hear the original motion that
So-
Mr. Destin read.
So you could, and if I could jump into, another option you have again is to make a motion to consider rescission. Again, though, that's going to be subject to the supermajority vote tonight. So I just wanted to, again, point that out to you, though.
Well, it just seems to me, and I'm just a practical guy, that if we would have just voted on his motion in the first place, it most likely would have been defeated, and we wouldn't have to worry about rescission because we can still press on.
Well,
Go ahead.
in good faith, I would recommend that this motion to reconsider can be agended at the next meeting, made again, and it's obvious it will pass. So this is not a complete defeat, it's just a slowdown on the process. In other words, whoever made the motion can agenda that motion at the next meeting, and then if it goes 4-3, it will pass, and you can immediately take it up at the next meeting. It's pretty simple.
But anyone can make that motion, not just Mr. King, correct? Because that motion, we've already voted on it and it failed.
Well, this motion failed, but any of the prevailing side could place that motion on the next agenda. Then it only requires a regular majority, a simple majority vote.
Tick tock, tick tock. Who wants to do that? I can't. I'm the chair. I can't make motions.
Can I put it on the next agenda?
Sure, and that will not require a motion. The staff can simply place that under your name at the next agenda.
Thank you.
There we go. Move on. Next.
Thanks, sir. Item 4F is about our upcoming citizen survey, and the survey is what we will be sending out to our residents, and it should actually begin to go out tomorrow. The first part of it will be a random sampling of our residents, which will make it statistically valid. That's good. I mean, that makes it good information. The second part will be an open survey for anyone who wants to partake. Those reports will come back separately. And Mr. Kozad has been leading this charge, so I don't know if he has anything else to add on that.
I would just add that the postcard will be mailed out tomorrow for the random sample survey. About a week later, the mail will actually be mailed out paper surveys to those random samples. After that, the October 14th, the online survey will open. At the end of October, I think the 28th it will close, and we should have a final report November 23rd.
And we will be doing some social media as well as a press release on this item tomorrow, first thing tomorrow morning, so keep your eyes open on that.
That's correct.
Thank you. I just want to add that these surveys, to me, are a critical part of our strategic planning process, and these results will be back in advance of our January visioning session. It's a different way to hear from the residents themselves, which I think is very important in this process. So I'm glad we've got it back on track. We'll be repeating it every 4 years at a minimum. And then on the off years, we'll do the same thing for our internal staff and get their input. That's all I have, sir.
No announcements?
Not tonight, sir.
Good. All right, we're only an hour in, so I'm not going to take a break at this time. I think we'll do our budgetary deals, and then before we get to item 5C, we may take a break depending on how long A and B goes. If they are short and concise and to the point, we'll press on. So, Kyle, take it away. 5A.
I'm going to defer to Kim tonight since, given my circumstances, Kim, if you don't mind reading. Sorry to surprise you there.
Have to get to the right page and do your part, but that's fine. We are,
Well, I just wanted to, I didn't want to exclude you out of sight, out of mind, Kyle. I wanted to include you in the municipal process.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. I'm glad I'm never too far out of mine.
Are you ready? Sorry for the delay. Kyle. Yeah, I need to have the reading though. Go ahead, Kim.
okay, we are on ordinance 2213 CN, an ordinance of the City of Destin of Okaloosa County, Florida, adopting the final levying of ad valorem taxes for the City of Destin for fiscal year 2023 and providing for an effective date.
All right, this is a public hearing, so what I'll do at this time is open up for public comment concerning ordinance 22-13-CN, adopting the fiscal year 2023 millage rate. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to come to the podium and make a comment at this time? Anyone queued up, Catherine, on the computer? All right, go ahead, Sandy.
This is so weird.
The lone wolf.
Whenever you up the millage rate 12%, there's got to be at least somebody out there that's not going to be able to afford it. So I'm going to speak for them tonight. I think that we need to cut back on some of our budget items. Definitely not Parks and Rec, since you keep adding parks to it and you keep taking out our personnel to take care of those parks. But anyway, I'll just request that you consider no for the increase in the millage rate. 12.22% is quite a bit.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else?
Thank you.
Seeing no further comment, I will close the public comment period of this hearing at this time, and I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Bagby, I have you up.
I move that the council adopt ordinance 22-13-CN on first reading, adopting a proposed FY 2023 millage rate of 1.6150 mils, which is more than the rollback rate of 1.4391 by 12.22%. The second reading will take place at public hearing number 2 on September 19th, 2022 at 6 p.m. at the City Hall Annex. And then if I get a second, I have one
Second.
comment.
I have a motion, I have a second, and while you have the microphone, go ahead, sir.
And I appreciate what Ms. Trammell is saying, and I don't disagree. I just want to make, it's just like this is a tax increase, but the millage rate's not increasing. The millage rate's staying the same. The whole increase in the taxes is due to the appreciation in the value of the owner's properties. And so, and yes, still 12.22% is large, but hopefully most of our senior citizens, long-term residents are homesteaded, and so theirs can only increase by, I believe, 3% is what the state law is still, because, of course, now there's a catch-up rate that applies when we go the other direction. But I would say I am sympathetic to our citizens that you're talking about, but I think we do need more help in Parks and Rec, and we do need some more things in other parts of the city, and I think this is a fair balance. Thank you.
Mr. Destin.
Thank you, Mayor. And I understand exactly what Ms. Trammell's talking about. However, we made a decision this year to increase the pay to our employees. That 12 point whatever it is.
18%, sorry.
Yes, that the percentage increase is absolutely necessary for us to meet that obligation. With a large portion of that increase that is due to the property appraisers raising the property appraisals will go toward those raises. However, next year's increase, if we are lucky enough to have an increase in the property values, we better think long and hard about what we're doing with that money, because not just the raises that we've given to our employees are coming down on top of us, but on the consent agenda, we saw what increases in the insurance is, the increases in the fuel. We have increases all across the board, everything we do, from 3 to 5 to 20%. So if we are lucky enough next year to also get an increase in the property values, we better stock that money to cover those things, because we spent the majority of it this year on employee raises, which we all were in favor of.
I'll keep it real short. And nobody likes more taxes, whether you're on a fixed income or you're not. But I think the only reason there's any increase in the tax roll at all is because of the value of the property. So the high tide floats all the boats. And the homestead exemption does prevent our fixed income folks from having to absorb any big costs. It's actually going to be in the tens of dollars, not the hundreds of dollars in an increase. And Mr. Destin said everything I was going to say. And lastly, as of today and into 2023, we still have the third lowest tax, ad valorem tax, in the entire state. So that's something to be proud of. That means the council's done their job and been very conservative in their approach to the budgets and stuff like that. But it also gives us some wiggle room later in life if the community wants more out of this city than what we can presently give it with the monies that we have now. So it's something to be proud of, and I want to congratulate the council and the previous councils for maintaining that status, and that's an important status. It goes to show that the vast majority of our benefit from tourism helps us keep those ad valorem taxes done. So that economic engine that's driven by tourism and our charter fleets and our restaurants, stuff like that, picks up the tab, and it's really important. So, any further ado, and any comments, we have a motion, we have a second, so let's take a vote. Vote is unanimous, so moved. Kim.
Okay, ordinance 2214 CN, an ordinance of the City of Destin making appropriations for certain expenditures, expenses, capital improvements, and certain indebtedness of the City of Destin, Florida, for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2022, and ending September 30th, 2023, and providing for an effective date.
This is a public hearing, so at this time, I'll open up comments from the public concerning the first reading of ordinance 22-14-CN, adopting the fiscal year budget of 2023. Seeing no comments, Catherine, is there anybody queued up online? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment portion of this hearing and entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make that motion.
You want it?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I move that council adopt ordinance 22-14-CN on first reading to provide for a balanced budget for fiscal year 2023. The second reading will take place at public hearing number 2 on September 19th, 2022 at 6 p.m. in the City Hall Annex.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none? Oh, hold on. I didn't, see, when I looked that way, the screen lit up. Mr. Schmidt, go ahead, sir.
Appreciate it. Just a few notes, not necessarily in agreement with all the budgeted items, projects and things like that, but take that up, I guess, whenever it comes to us for the specific project. I did want to note that for the public, specifically, there's a page on our packet for the budget that lists out the council objectives to our budget, and it's last year's council objectives. And so staff said that that would be updated in the final book. So not really too sure why it's wrong in that packet, but one item I would like to amend or change is based upon our council objectives and priorities. I'm trying to find it, apologize. Can't find the wording, but one of the objectives that we have, I think is our second objective, is working together to find a convention city center type of thing. And I'd like to make more of an effort to actually list a priority of the council on the budget rather than taking it off and putting it into contingency. I think it's important to, if it's one of our top 2 objectives, that we should put ink on paper and put a line item into the capital projects for a city center planning and design. I don't know where that takes us or where that goes, but I think it's important to have it on there. So I'd like to ask if the motion maker would amend to add $50,000 budget item for city center planning and design. Or if not, I'll make a substitute motion, I guess.
Can I, Crystal?
Am I not allowed to do that tonight?
Yeah, absolutely.
You are. Was the city center study, was that part, is that a line item in the budget, or was that the marina that we took off and put back in the general funds? I think it's already there.
No, it's not. We moved it to contingency at the second workshop.
All right.
That's correct. It got moved
not-
into the contingency.
And you
of the
wanna
second
move it
workshop.
back?
I want to specifically put city center design and planning, $50,000 line item.
Can I add that in there, Crystal, as part of my motion?
Yes.
Does that affect our timelines for our second reading and stuff?
No, this is just a change that comes from this meeting to the next.
Well, that's,
so
I mean,
we'll
that's the whole
update it.
purpose of the discussion at this point anyway.
And my number also is based upon the general fund additions that we have at 53-something thousand dollars, so we're still potentially still a positive of $3,000 on a net zero budget. So
Will you entertain a friendly amendment?
I'll do that amendment to mine. Are you able to add that in, Kim?
Yes, ma'am, to amend your motion to add the 50K for.
There was a point of
center.
order called.
I'm sorry. What was that?
Before we get too far down this road, because typically we're going to have 5 or 6 amendments.
Okay.
Just vote on the amendments, and then we vote, I'm sorry. Just having, maybe we've changed the rules since I was here last time, but we typically have 5 or 6 amendments. We vote on the amendments, and then we vote on the final budget as amended. So those amendments that pass, so instead of going through this whole rigmarole, will you adopt that into, let's just vote on the amendments. Kevin wants to move it to a specific line item. Crystal said, yeah, that's good. Let's just vote on that amendment. And then we'll come back and
Yeah.
vote on the budget.
That's fine,
as
but there was already a motion made.
Yeah,
second,
see,
so that was my only concern.
So that puts me in a position with a motion already made and a second to that motion and discussion, which we're having now before we go to a vote. So Kevin's brought up an issue. I think,
Just pull your motion.
So if Teresa would just withdraw her motion, and
I'll
then
withdraw
Kevin could
my
make his
motion.
motion?
okay,
Yep.
so we cleaned it up.
All right, we're done.
All right, Mr. Destin.
Kevin would need to make his motion to amend.
Okay, go ahead, Go ahead, Mr. Schmidt.
Please use your microphones.
Do we need to have a bunch of other amendments that potentially to be talked about, or one at a time?
Just do one at a time.
Do I need to read the actual, I have to pull it back up. Do I need to read the recommended motion as is?
No, you're just amending it. As long as you can identify your amendment with sufficient particularity that Crystal and the rest of council understands it, that's all you need to
So
do
I'd
at this
like to
point.
move to amend the budget to add a $50,000 line item for council, or capital project for city center planning and design.
I have a
Mr. Mayor.
motion. Do I have a
Mr. Mayor.
second?
Mr. Mayor,
Flag on play.
can I ask a clarification question, please?
All right.
I heard two different things, and it's okay either way. I just need to know which one we are doing. One of them would be transferring from the $75,000 in the contingency fund. The other one would be taking it from the rollover, the additional funds that we're going to roll forward from this year's budget. Two different things for us.
We have, in this process, okay, it should be very specific. We're not adding, we're moving money from a contingency, 50,000, to add a line item. We're not adding to the budget. We're just adding, coming from, so you have to identify the source and where you want the
That's
source
fine.
to
I
go.
apologize, because I did say contingency the first time I was talking, but, so I'd like to make a motion to amend the budget. We good so far? To amend the budget, to move 50,000 from contingency to a line item. Do I need to say capital budget line item? Okay, I'll say capital budget line item for city center planning and design.
I have a motion.
I second.
Well, I just don't want to be not descriptive enough and then get told again that I'm
Okay.
not being descriptive enough, so.
I have,
just
I
trying to
have a
cover all my
motion
bases.
for this amendment and a second. Now, is there a lot of discussion, or you all just want to vote on these amendments?
Let's vote on the amendment.
Well, Mr. Braden wants to talk. You got it.
Thanks. I just have a question. It is to $50,000 to design and build? He didn't say study, he said a design and build.
I said design and plan.
Design and plan, okay, sorry. Design and plan. So what does that mean? What is it, we're gonna spend $50,000 on somebody's gonna design it?
I just want to add a budget item to support number 2 council objective to design and plan the city center. We might not even do it. Maybe we won't even design it the next year, but it's one of our top 2 priorities, so I just feel strongly that we should put that on the budget.
I can help
But
answer your question.
So
I don't want to go details.
I know that we're not approving to hire somebody to design one tonight on that has come, so my thought is, yeah, it's set aside, but we need to, I think the money needs to be set aside to tell us how much that thing's gonna cost and how we're gonna get the money to pay for it first, before we go to designing and a building or something.
I think it's one of, in the same, I've already been talking with different people about trying to get a three-dimensional idea of what the capabilities are, where something like that can be done. I think a $50,000 amount will get us in the door, but most importantly is when we decide to actually act on it, we still got to do an RFP and have people entertain and give us prices and for us to kind of tell them what we want and stuff like that. So I think all he's doing is setting, just re-earmarking the money to be in line with our visioning document. And that's where we're at tonight on the 8th of September, okay? So, any further discussion on this amendment? Seeing none, let's go ahead and take it to a vote. Ayes have it, so moved. Well,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would move that we direct staff to bring back, make an amendment to the budget which provides for a 2% COLA for all staff members for FY '23 and a merit increase up to 4% for FY '23. And basically what this is the idea that I got, in our last budget hearing, Councilmember Wagner said, well, why don't you just flip it? And actually, the more I've thought about that, the more I like it. I would say that if this amendment passes, I will ask staff to come back mid-year, 6 months into the fiscal year, and tell us what our average increase or our average merit increase was, so that the 4% doesn't become an additional 4% COLA. It should actually be a merit. And I trust them to do the process right. I just want to know for my own
So I have,
edification.
all right, thanks, sir. So I have a motion, I have a second to amend the budget. So I do have Mr. Schmidt up and then Mr. Destin on this motion. Go ahead, sir.
Crystal, can you remind us where it's currently at, please?
So we had 5% cost of living and 2% merit, so that was the 7%. Our salary budget is about $5.6 million, so decreasing it by 1%, you're decreasing it for about $56,000.
Mr. Destin.
I would just comment in line with what Ms. Tremble testified, and what we've all realized is we've put all of our spare cash into these increases, and at some point, we're going to have to take it and direct it toward the other dramatic increases we have in expenses in the city. I think 2 and 4 is about as fair as we can get, while understanding that we've got to put money toward other expenses.
Ms. Aber.
Thank you, Mayor. Sort of in line with what Kevin was asking, I thought on the last one we were at 5 and 2. So,
Correct, 5 and 2.
So this is being switched as 2 and 4, which is more in line with what our overall budget would sustain going forward.
Our budget is sustainable at 5 and 2 as well. It's just a council's preference. And just to put the millage increase into perspective, if your home was valued last year at $450,000 and it's homesteaded, you're going to increase 3%. So you're going to go from last year you paid $727, next year you're going to pay $748. So it's about a $21 difference from your taxes from last year compared to next year. On what you'd pay to Destin. Just wanted to put all of that into perspective.
Mr. Bagby.
Yeah, and I understand why the questions are, how do we get from 5 to 4, and whether the 56,000 is used for the council's second highest priority, which is where I would have put it, but now that we've taken the council contingency, put it there, we can just put it back in the council contingency. The other thing, I think the staff distributed, you all got, because we've said a lot about the vacancies, and we have to pay people enough, and we are paying people enough. We've cut our vacancies almost in half, okay? And so, and a lot of that is our interim HR director, and Webb and Lance and the other members of the team working hard, but we have some of the best benefits in Northwest Florida. And so I think we are competitive. I think we're more than competitive, and I think that's why we've filled our vacancies the way we have. Yeah, we still have 9 or 11, whatever the number was today, but everybody wants something different. People want ball fields, people want parks, people want, we all want to pay our staff. We all want these things. We all want more beach. I wish we had unlimited money and we could build people hockey rinks in the town center, but even though that's not one of my things. But we have to balance all this, and I think 2 and 4 is a fair balance for the staff based on the over 18% average increase that they got in April. Thank you.
Mr. Destin, after that, we're going to go ahead and take this to a vote.
I just am always startled by the only $21 raised in the property. That's for someone who has a median house and who has homestead exemption. Fact is, there are hundreds and hundreds of businesses in Destin, and believe me, it's far more than $21 to all of those business owners. And without those businesses, no one has a job in Destin. And so when we raise the millage rate and say, oh, it's only going to be $21 for the average house owner, well, there's only 3,000 or 4,000 homeowners in Destin. Everybody, all the rest of it's owned by businesses. So that's kind of, you can make numbers say anything you want if you twist them the right way.
It does bring a little bit of relevancy, though, to the average resident. So, we're business owners too, so we get it. So, go ahead, so I can vote on
So
this.
you're given numbers as far as what the property tax would be. So 2% COLA, what exactly would that look like to one of the average employees of our staff? Versus 5%?
Well, the difference really is the merit happens upon your work anniversary, and people were hired all throughout the year, so, and I don't have a graph, so I don't know. I can't tell you that half of the people were hired in the first half of the year. I don't know the distribution of that, so it's really hard to calculate that.
I mean, as far as cost of living, it's 8% when you watch the news. That's what I'm saying. Why is 2% a fair increase with this budget? What's that monetary look like?
Yeah, I'd have to take out the average of salaries, and it's just not something I can calculate off the top of my head right here.
Okay.
It really, let's go ahead and take this to a vote, folks. Ayes have it, so moved. All right, before we get into entertaining a motion for the entire budget, are there any other amendments that need to be made at this time? Yes, sir.
Since we're all in here swinging for the home run, we talked about, at least in one of our capital construction and visiting sessions, about putting electric chargers for electric cars in the parking lot across from Fishing Fleet, the one on Melvin. And I would move that we adjust the budget $50,000 to look at that project, and let's put in some chargers. Buc-ee's gas station, which is one of the most successful things I've ever seen in my life, put in 12 of them last month, and they do that for a reason, because people come. And if we're going to be a green city, let's actually do something that's green. So that's a motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
I have a second. Hopefully no discussion.
Where does that come, where is that, is it moving or adding?
I'm going to allow finance. I would direct the finance director, who's an expert at this, to make the appropriate adjustments from the area she thinks it should come from.
Okay, so could I just recap so far, and then you can continue?
Yeah, I understand, and it's usually a good policy to let her do it, because she knows where it can come from, cause the least amount of disruption, whether it's some of those rollovers or any other area she thinks appropriate, and that's where she can transfer it from.
That's reflective of the confidence we have in our finance director that she's established over the last, her tenure since she's been here. So I think that's a good move. So go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I mean, we just saved $56,000, and actually, we saved a little bit more than $56,000 because I think some of our benefits are actually tied to what our salaries are. I know our 401, or our retirement plan, so we may have saved $60,000. So I would say that's at least your $50,000 should come out of there before we touch anything that we've already reviewed and approved, or not approved, reviewed in all our budget hearings. So I would serve that up as a location.
Mr. Braden.
I think that would be a better and a more easier avenue to get a grant for something like that than come out of our budget.
That would be a good idea, probably for matching grant. And we would certainly entertain grants, and 50,000 isn't going to be enough to put those things in, so we all know we want to look for grants, but
Webb's our parking master. Lay it on us, buddy. We're gonna include our deputy city manager. He's the parking guru for the city of Destin. Go ahead, sir.
We have taken this to heart, and we have been researching the item as part of the green initiative, as well as improving parking. We have some information that we were hoping to bring forward here in the next month or two on that. Some options include it would be no cost to the city, and some, depending on how we would want to do it, you could potentially accomplish a small revenue source, but it's kind of complicated. But there are options out there that we were going to bring to council or see if we need to go out to RFP for something.
Well, there you go. All right. Seeing no further ado, we have a motion, we have a second. Let's go ahead and take it to a vote. Ayes have it, so moved, and I will entertain a motion to accept first reading of, as amended. Yeah, that's right. As amended. Go ahead, anyone.
I move to make the motion to approve budget as amended.
Second.
Got a motion, got a second. No further ado. Let's go ahead and take a vote. Ayes have it, so moved. Let's take a quick 5-minute break, and then we'll get right back at it and finish up our ordinance, our public hearings, and then we'll finish up the meeting tonight. How many did you have to fill? I grabbed the. All right, folks. I'd like to call the meeting back to order here, if everyone will take a seat. And we will press on with our, we have two ordinances, two public hearings left. And as soon as Ms. Kopp makes her way back to her chair,
And Lance?
we'll have Kim read our 5C, second reading of ordinance 2202.
This is ordinance 2202 PC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, amending its comprehensive plan 2020, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for title, providing for jurisdiction, providing for intent, amending Chapter 1, future land use element, establishing the following planning areas within the City of Destin: Airport, Crystal Beach, Gulf Resort, Harbor, Henderson Beach, Holiday Isle, Town Center Commons, and village planning areas as generally depicted on the map attached here 2 as Exhibit A, providing for goals, policies, and objectives relating to such planning areas, providing for transmittal to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, providing for incorporation into the comprehensive plan, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, ma'am, and this is a public hearing, so at this time, I'll open up the public comment portion of the second reading of ordinance 2202 PC. Anyone have any comments? Come on up.
This is me, Sandy Trammell, 3823 Indian Trail. I just need some clarification, I guess, or some specifics, maybe. The harbor, I'm talking about the harbor CRA right there. In the past, the councils have all said we will not have short-term rentals north of 98. The Harbor District branches both of those. Basically, I'm all for designating the zones, okay? But I think in that particular zone, we need to look at south of 98 versus north of 98 in short-term rentals. Because if you're going to make one rule for all, south of 98 can have them, north of 98 can't. And that's been the record for as long as we've been a city. So I don't know if we change that or if we need to specify within the Harbor District and the Town Center, for that matter, because they actually go out to 98, that we look at that as a difference. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sandy. And while she made those comments, Lewis, would you like to address those concerns?
These are general intent statements. You will be getting through a review of the individual zoning districts that are within those planning areas, and then you can set up those parameters. That's where you can set up your density limits, your uses, and those kinds of things.
I knew that. I just wanted you to put it on the public record. To address that very concern, we will address each one of these areas. You will not let us forget, will you not? All right, I'm going to direct staff not to forget.
That's on our top of our list.
All right, thank you, Lewis. Thank you, Ms. Trammell. Yes, so much. All right. Any, at this time, no one else wants to come up. I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment period, and we'll entertain a motion at this point.
I recommend City Council approve the proposed ordinance 2202 PC, planning areas for incorporation into the comprehensive plan and future land use map.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Is there any further discussion on the second reading of this ordinance? Seeing none, we'll take it to a vote. The vote is unanimous, so moved. Thank you. Kim.
Ordinance 2212 CN, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, approving the form and authorizing execution and delivery of an interlocal agreement between the city and Okaloosa County to facilitate the city's acquisition of certain beach property and the development or redevelopment of such property for public recreation and tourism purposes, and to establish the respective financial obligations of the city and county associated therewith, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, ma'am. This also is a public hearing, so at this time, I'll open it up for public comment. Any comments to the second reading of ordinance 22-12-CN? Come on up, ma'am. Catherine, you got anybody queued up there? No? Okay. Go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah, I am going to speak for the Parks and Rec today that we did take this up at our meeting, and we are in support of this beach acquisition.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Ms. Catherine doesn't have anybody queued up, so I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment portion of this, and I'll entertain the motion at this time.
I move to approve ordinance 2212CN on second reading and direct the city manager to execute the bulk purchase agreement with the Trust for Public Land Incorporated for the purchase of Tarpon Beach and proceed with closing on that property.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. First up, Mr. Schmidt, go ahead.
Thank you. Just want to make a few public comments. One, I'm happy to have beach. I'm not happy about the deal that we're making. I personally feel that the county should come back to be a partner with us in the maintenance of the parks. And rather than making us pay for it 100%, I believe that we should have a 50-50 share in the TDC fund allocation to maintain all these parks. They're advertising and promoting it for people all across the entire county, but we're going to be footing the bill with the TDC funds. I get it, but I still feel like a partnership, they should be partnering with us to do that. I also don't agree with the fact that we can't make certain small changes with parking and whatnot without having to go back to them and ask for permission. I get it that it's written the way it is, that we can hopefully go ask permission and they should approve it, but if it's our park, I just feel like, why are we having to ask permission as long as it falls into our ordinances and our LDCs? I'm also was not thrilled with the entire timing of all of this. I think it was a bad timing of tonight. We're doing our first reading of our budget. This was already on there, and we haven't even finished the second reading of this particular item, but it's already on our budget. I hope, for whatever reason, that we don't have that presentation again in the future. It'd be my wishes. So, again, having more beach, it's beautiful. It's going to be packed. I get it. It's going to be used. It's exciting. But the deal that's being made with the county to do it, I can't support.
We have a motion, we have a second. No further comment? Let's go ahead and take it to a vote. Ayes have it, so moved. Thank you. Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mayor. Can we get an update on the Captain Royal Melvin Heritage Park? It's on a consent agenda. We extended it again. It just seems like that everybody knows this is going to wind up in court, so we just keep putting it off and hoping a little ferry shows up at night and finishes this park for us. Where's this going? Are we just going to keep extending it until end of time? We're going to find out what we can do and what we cannot do. What's staff's plan on this?
So I got to be kind of careful how I answer this. The contractor has engaged an attorney, so you need to know that up front. I think you know that, but they have engaged an attorney. Our city attorney, Kyle, and Kim are both working with that attorney to try to get something worked out and move this thing along so that we can get to the point where we can CO the property, which is what we want to do. It may not be exactly the way we want it, but we want the CO in our hand so that we can take ownership and move the thing along.
We are in litigation.
We are not currently in litigation. They've just engaged an attorney, and we're having conversations to try to resolve the existing, not seeing exactly eye to eye on things.
So no work will be being performed at this time until?
That's not true. We're trying to have the park completed, like Lance said, to get the CO. So work is ongoing. Maybe not at the speed at which we'd like, but we're trying to work with the attorney to get it moving.
Can you tell us how much money is left this needs to be paid to this contractor? Not what's being held out at the end, but what's being left?
All I can say is that I have over $200,000 in retainage at this point, and, but I don't have the total figures on hand at this moment.
Is that including, was it 10% retainage?
It is.
That's correct.
So that's including the, and how much is the 10%?
The 10% I have in hand is just over $200,000.
So I'm saying so that's telling me he's been paid 100% of the contract, other than what the 10% is supposed to be retained at the end after we're satisfied? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, I would say that the contractor does submit monthly progress payments, and we have had some disputes as to work completed in those progress payments. The work that our engineer and staff approve as being completed has been paid timely. Work that we feel has not been completed, we have not paid. And the retainage that Crystal was talking about is, of course, on what we've already paid. But there is still additional monies that we have not paid for work that is not yet done.
So I guess my next question is $200,000 going to be enough to finish the park?
I don't know specific. I'd have to defer to staff if they know any better on the specific monetary amounts on this project.
Okay, thank you. So basically, there's no light at the end of the tunnel as far as getting the park completed. Now we're talking to attorneys to.
Sometimes attorneys can be the light at the end of the tunnel. It doesn't always end up in litigation. So we'll see, but I would not say there's no end in sight. We're trying to close it up and get it complete.
So
Don't forget, we have the treasury involved and the county, so there's a lot of complicating factors, but the parties are conversing. Nobody has walked away from anything, and we're continuing.
Is it a dispute? And tell them if I'm asking too many questions, I need to shut up. It's fine with that. Is the dispute that McLean's work's has been done and is not getting paid for it?
The dispute is probably, I would say, with the quality of the work at this point and the remaining work that needs to be finished. But we should probably leave it there for now. We can talk privately further.
Roger. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney. Is that for?
Yes, sir. I'm done.
Okay,
Thank you.
Mr. Wagner.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I'm going to strike the second, but the first one, now that we've passed the motion for the second ordinance for the beach acquisitions, I think after that first wave of the first ordinance and seeing all the information online, I think there's a lot of misconceptions and a lot of, I guess, guessing. So I just wanted to make an official motion to direct staff to work with the TDC and others that would be able to provide more information and transparencies on the facts of these new beaches and how they will be utilized by the public.
Catherine, would you like to weigh in on that?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Catherine, would you like to weigh in on that? Because that kind of falls in your category. I know you work with the TDC on a ton of public service announcements and stuff like that and information.
Sure, no, absolutely. It's not a problem. However, the council would like to direct staff to do that. I can certainly reach out to Jennifer Adams as well as April Sarver, the county PIO, and start kind of getting a game plan together on how we want to hit the ground running on that.
And so we have a motion and a second on that. Is there any further direction you'd like to give her as far as approaching TDC?
No, I mean, just in general, I mean, whoever's our representative for the TDC.
We have a meeting next Tuesday, and that is
so
part of
whoever
the
they think is-
discussion.
Yep, perfect.
We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's go ahead.
Can I hear the motion? Can I hear that
I'm
motion
sorry.
again? I'm sorry.
Hold on just a second, guys. Go ahead,
So,
Mr.
I just want
Brady.
to hear the motion again.
Yeah, so I move to direct city staff to work with the TDC to create an informative video in hopes to create a full transparency of the facts and how these new beach parks will be utilized by the public and, I guess, be utilized by the public. Yep. Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and take a vote. Ayes have it, so moved. What else you got, Bobby?
That is it for tonight.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Destin.
Thank you, Mayor. I think as we're all aware, Representative Maney got a couple $100,000 from the legislature for us to design a linear park on the Gulf Power right away, I think behind Big Kahuna's. Now, the problem is that money has a sunset on it. If we don't spend it, it will go back. And what we need to do is form a group within the city, and we could have a council person on board. I've spoken to Bernard Johnson of Gulf Power. They will provide someone to be on the committee, because if it doesn't meet Gulf Power's requirements, then it won't be happening. So we need to have them part of it from the very beginning. So I would move, and we'll let the city manager come up with staff members. Do we have a volunteer from the council, Bobby? Is everybody agreeable with that?
I'd like a Parks and Rec rep, at
Okay.
least one, if not more.
Okay, and Ms. Trammell, the younger. And if that's agreeable to the council.
Wallace.
And Destin Water users.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry. Water user, and not even Ms. Trammell anymore. What am I thinking?
Wallace, yeah.
Okay, but I think we all know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
If that's agreeable to this council and to the city manager, I would make a motion to appoint that and have a representative of Gulf Power sit in. And I think the deadlines are going to be coming toward us pretty soon. I'd hate to lose that money and have it go back to the legislature, and I know Representative Maney would not be happy with us if that happened. So we need to get on the stick and start designing. And-
Today's the 8th. You want to throw a date on there to put
Yeah,
it together?
I would say that Lance can put any other staff members on he thinks is appropriate or appropriate.
How much time you need, a week? Put something like that together?
Jeff, you got a question?
I just wanted to add that we have not been provided a grant agreement yet through FDOT, which is what will be coming, and that will actually explain the dates that we have to spend that money
Yes,
and what
well-
kind of time frame we have to work with.
I'm sure we can get those documents, because when I spoke to Representative Maney, he was a little worried that if we didn't get on the stick, we were going to run out of time. So, and like I said, Mr. Johnson said they would be happy to participate and tell us what we can do and what we cannot do within that easement.
Okay, we got a motion to form the committee to start development of the linear park. And we have a second. Is there any other comments?
My only comment would be, Lance, how quickly can we get on this?
I mean, we can start putting the team together next week, and
Okay.
that's easy. I mean,
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Yeah, I would just echo that. I've also talked to him, and he seemed like we were behind as well, so.
Nancy.
Yeah, he seems very hesitant at this point.
I guess my confusion is, we're antsy, but Jeff said we don't know the dates. I'm missing something, and I'm also, I know we didn't have
What
agenda
rep-
packet. I don't
I'll
understand
tell
what
you,
we're really talking about.
Representative Maney, it was at a function, and I know exactly what he was saying. His staff guy tried to reach Jeff, was talking to Jeff about it getting approved, and Jeff is in charge of all of the grants, and there's always that governmental system of when they come up and they're approved and you get dates. Can you be a little more proactive on this in particular
What's going
one?
away?
It's a $200,000 money that Maney got approved for the city of Destin for this linear park. the linear
It's
park.
separate from
Any other
the
grants?
grant that you're waiting on? That separate grant?
No, that is the grant.
But you don't even have a document that tells you the dates of the parameters, but the money's going away?
No, not yet. The grant agreement would have those dates specified.
So why are we
in it.
worried about money going away?
Because the guy that got it told us to be worried about it.
And there is a date, so whoever
I just don't
needs
understand.
to find out what they are.
Jeff, can you make a call tomorrow and just find out from his
Very
assistant
confusing.
what he's got?
No,
I certainly can, yeah.
Ayes have it, so moved. Mr. Bagby.
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize. I thought this was going to be in your agenda packets, but it was placed on the desk for tonight. It was submitted earlier, but I guess I miscommunicated. But I was asked by the Destin Charity Wine Auction Foundation, they want to have a fundraiser in Mr. Willigus' favorite park. And they want to have a food truck there, and so they asked if we would waive the fees, and I said I would gladly be the legislative sponsor for the waiver of those fees. They raised this year $3.775 million for children's charities in this area, and in the last 15 years or 12 years, whatever it is, have raised over $28 million for children's charities that have benefited our children and the children of this area. And I thought it would be a good gesture on our part to waive the $250 special event permit fee. So I'll make a motion that we waive the $250 special event permit fee.
Second.
Okay. Yeah.
Getting there.
Let's take a vote. Ayes have it, so moved.
Whatever Kim puts in there works better.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Kim cleared, I hit the button too many times. Ms. Aber.
I just wanted to let the council know I do have a TDC meeting in September. It's next Tuesday at 8:30 in the morning. We will be discussing beach access as well as the tourism and the amount of increase this July, which was it was very exciting to see the numbers for this July. I'll be bringing those back to the next meeting. Is there anything any of you need me to bring up to TDC? Mainly the media coverage of what our beach access is. Be more than happy to represent.
Thank you. Johnny.
Thank you, sir. Just one thing real quick. I know a while back we had asked for updates as far as code enforcement goes for the bareboats and stuff like that, and just wanted to follow through and kind of see where we are with that and what I don't recall getting an update of late, and just was going to see where we were with all that. Sorry to put you on the spot. Yeah, and I think that was we had kind of, this all came about before you came with us. Welcome, by the way. I don't think we've met. I'm Johnny. Nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Kimberly.
So we had, months ago, we had some, I'm sure you're well aware, with some really concerned business owners who felt like they were being encroached upon by illegally operated vessels and such. And so I know that was one of my, took great concern with that, and was going to, we had talked about a month. Go ahead, Lance.
Yep, thank you. The first thing I want to do is mention the study that still is ongoing down in the harbor, because they will be taking inventory of those items too. And as far as code compliance stats go, I think what we agreed on was quarterly, and so at the end of September will be the end of our fourth quarter, so we'll bring back the quarterly stats at that point for you guys on that.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, I appreciate it. First thing I want to start with is my agenda item. You should have seen in your packet some documents about the food truck ordinance regulation. The very last page, if you made it to the very last page of the 987-page document, is the allowable district for mobile vendors. And ultimately, my goal is I'd like to have Kim and staff work to look at it, see what kind of tweaks we can make, hopefully for the better, to add more. That's my intention. If you look at the map, it almost doesn't look like it even makes sense, honestly. There's random little squares that are just randomly by houses that I would love to know the history of how this map really got built. But ultimately, I'm just wanting to make a motion to direct Lance and staff to look over this and bring back potential changes and updates to us.
Second.
Got a motion, got a second. I have a question for you, Kevin, along those thoughts. Do you have any guidance that you would like to give them, what to look for?
I guess I hate to say guidance of common sense, but because I know that's not very clear, but
You want expansion.
I want to expand, just like for an example, if I were to want to put up some mobile food trucks near local market, near La Paz or whatever, with permission from private business owners, I couldn't do it, according to this map. There's areas on here that, sure, in the Harbor Mixed Use Village, it's all yellow. But then maybe other areas that as we're doing the rezone, districts, we kind of look at that and look at this to expand, because food truck scene, mobile food trucks, the whole 9 yards has become a lot more popular in the last few years, give or take. I don't even know when this map was made, but probably a lot since that map was made. So ultimately, as expansion, I haven't taken my crown and colored it yet, but just growth and expansion.
Thanks. Yeah, my question was, is there a reason that we don't allow food trucks where we allow other food service restaurants, things in those uses? Is there a reason we restricted it? I mean, most of them are, but I was like, Kevin, I was like, well, whose house is that over there by the Village Baptist Church or whatever that, how did we get that square? So is there a rhyme or a reason?
I could not offer you a reason right now,
Okay.
and I think I could say this is one of the items that we have on our list to look at as part of the overall rewrite of the LDC ordinance. As you know, we have all kinds of contradictory issues in there. My question to the council member is, would you want to have it done right away, or would you wait for it to be part of the overall rewrite of the LDC?
That's a great question. So question back to you is, when is that time frame?
I would say on course right now to rewrite the entire LDC, we're looking at probably March of next year.
Right. To be rewritten, approved, and finalized by March of next year, or to present it to us?
Coming to you for a review. Now, how long you take to, it's entirely up to city council.
I would prefer if it doesn't take as much time to do this one before March, because ideally, in my mindset, I'd think of spring and summer as food truck season, and so I'd rather have this time more open already.
Well, that gives me guidance. Thanks.
Well, let's go ahead and do a motion. Okay.
Danny got second.
Okay, all right.
Now we need to-
Oh, well, another observation. I don't want you to go too far to finish up my time, because when we first came up about buying the beachfront parcel, all my neighbors, they envision something like Airstream Row and Seaside down there where they can walk and have little food, these taco bars and all this other stuff. I was like,
Kevin's
no,
second.
that's a public beach, and public has different rules. So I want to make sure we don't I don't want to be underwriting private enterprise. I like food trucks I like food, period. But I just want to make sure we don't go too far. But I think in commercial CTS or in where food establishments are authorized, yeah, fine.
All right, and my only concern as we go through that process is there's always questions about, you're thinking about food trucks. Under that same ordinance, we got people that set up permanent trailers that never move, and they're a little sketchy on whether they're following all the rules by the health department, stuff like that. And I want to make sure that these mobile food trucks or mobile food services are exactly that, and that they're not camped out at the same place day after day.
I agree.
Especially with restaurants that are paying premium rents and
I agree.
parking rules and
It's
requirements.
It's already written in there.
Yeah.
I mean, it specifically talks about rusted
Yeah,
tires.
unfortunately, it's not always being enforced.
Well, but it's there.
So that I just wanted to raise that concern. Mr. Destin.
Thank you. And that ordinance was done a long time ago, but if I recall, it was trying to put them into the area that is our festive marketplace. Now, how all those little other boxes popped up, I'm not sure. I think some of them are in recreation areas where they would put a mobile vending when a game is on or something like that. But, we need to think about what we do before we go forward and change this to where you can put them everywhere and anywhere. So I would caution that we need to go slowly and figure out what we're doing.
Yeah, and the footprint of our city and our unincorporated areas has really, really changed in the last 6 to 8 years, so it is time to relook at all that. So I support the motion, even though I don't get to vote. Mr. Wagner?
Everyone's good.
All right, well, we've had discussion. Let's take a vote on the motion. Yes, we're voting. Ayes have it, so moved. Go ahead,
Thank you.
Mr. Smith.
The Crosstown Connector land, the old RV lot, RV lot, is that what it was? Do we recall, like, how much that was? I mean, that's a left field question. 5 or 6 million? Okay. Is there any thoughts or interest while we're going through this process to look at that space and how we can utilize it for the public, people walking, people playing? If, one day we're wanting to have a park there, maybe not. Right now we have a $5 million piece of property with gates on it, and I know there's reasons why it's been like that in the past, but is there any interest to pursue of why not open it, get it to a point to use it while we continue to talk about Crosstown Connector? Well, it's not on the agenda, but I'll gladly make the motion to direct the city manager
We
to
can
look
just
into
give
this.
guidance. We can just give direction without a motion. No.
I'll make the motion to direct city manager to look into this. Second? Okay.
Okay, I got a motion, I got a second. Let's just go ahead and vote on it and see what they come up with.
If you want more
We're
direction.
almost done.
Almost.
Go ahead and take a vote.
For clarification, the motion is that staff look at
Yes.
temporary use.
Yes. A temporary use for the existing property.
Thank you.
Ayes have it, so moved.
I appreciate it.
2 for 2, Kevin. Go for it.
Oh,
Go
geez,
ahead.
Hold on now. The gentleman that was here about Noriega Beach earlier.
Can I address that? Just say
You can
that for
start,
me.
but I'm still going to save my. Go ahead. Yeah.
He's not done.
I was,
Address it now.
no, just go ahead.
Well, okay. Sorry. I understand his questions, concerns. I've heard about our reasons, the future, the future park, the future bathrooms, and all that. But at the end of the day, and I don't know, I feel like there is some truth to what's being said about managing the park, right? If I go to Buck Destin, we're about to put brand new bathrooms in there. If I go to Calhoun, there's bathrooms there. If I go to, a lot of places, there's bathrooms. So I understand what he's saying, and I agree that we don't have bathrooms, but we also don't really enforce the hours that it's stated. And I think that's been brought up here a year or two ago, and there wasn't really much direction, I guess, but there's truth to that as well. I believe that the park hours are specified, but we don't enforce it. I get it's harder to enforce on a beach, but, huh?
Once that park's closed, it's up to the sheriff's department.
I mean, it's up to their debate, because if I go to Calhoun Park after hours, or if I go to somewhere else, they're going to shoo me out of there. When somebody from the city possibly sees me, they're going to shoo me out of there.
Isn't Noriega Point
Are
different?
they not? Well, I don't know. I mean, you could say it's different, but it's a City of Destin beach or park, and it falls under the same guidelines as sunrise and sunset, open to closed. So who enforces it after the closing hours then? Who's supposed to enforce that?
So as much as enforcement as we have, I mean, the
No,
code.
just who enforces the park being closed?
I wish it was that simple, but it's just not. We have park staff that's going out there emptying garbage. They can enforce it. We have code enforcement going out there in the evenings to make sure the parking lot gets cleared or ticket them at that point. And then the sheriff's office responds after that.
Right, but if we have codes and if we have park hours and ordinances that says something, we have overnight code guys that drive around the city We don't have overnight guys anymore?
We've never had overnight.
Or late night
We-
hours?
We do have late night.
night,
Yeah, we
sorry.
do have late night.
That could drive by, look, call the sheriff's office if there's people out there.
They do.
All right, well, I just hope that, I get there's going to be future bathrooms there with the new, and that's exciting. I just hope that we are putting effort into enforcing what the rules are on that park. That's my only comment, I guess. And you can continue to talk later or now, it's up to you.
I'm just gonna,
I'm done for that, but you can.
yeah,
you
I'll
wanna
just
take it
weigh in
now,
on
or-
it. I'll let Kim weigh in on it, because what bothered me when I heard public comment, and I've read all the emails and all that stuff insinuating that our staff is not doing anything about it and all that kind of stuff, that's not true either. Because our city attorney has answered those people with the rules, with documentation on them, and in many respects, in this particular time and place in our city's life, our hands are tied legally on what we can and cannot do. One of the things we cannot do right now is build bathrooms or put bathrooms on that site. It's against the law, as it's written. So there you are. When it comes to code enforcement, one of our code enforcement's not gonna get out of his truck and walk out on the sand dunes with a bunch of people that are partying up illegally after hours on that park. That's for a fellow with a green uniform and a gun, because our guys just don't have that authority and or capability to be crowd control specialists, especially drunk ones. So I want to defend the staff on that aspect of it. Yes, they can call and report illegal parking and after hours and stuff like that, but they already do that. And part of, if you look at our sheriff's reports on calls out to the beach, that's all part of Norrego Point. The park's really not a park yet. It's a landmass that's been partially developed, but we don't have any, they haven't finished it. The state hasn't finished their portion of it. And even though we technically are in ownership of that park, it's not a park. Kim?
And I do want to respond to something else that Mr. Mitchell said, because I did have multiple conversations with him, but I'm not the only one at the city. There was multiple staff that did respond to him. I know for a fact that Catherine responded multiple times. We worked together on some of her responses and with Lance. And he also heard back from the county and the state DEP. I want to say for the city, from a legal perspective here, we reached out to DEP with respect to his concerns, and DEP said we were basically doing everything we can right now because we can't put bathrooms there right now. There is an option to the council to amend our land development code if it wanted to allow temporary bathrooms. I think that our staff has concerns about that. Especially on Noriega Point, not making sense anyway because of the potential for the smell and the stability and the safety of putting a temporary structure there. So there's other options for resolving this issue, which I did discuss with Mr. Mitchell. As everybody knows, the private property is going to be closed off soon when our road is constructed, which is fairly imminent. We're just waiting on our permit from DEP for the coastal construction. So once that happens, I think the problem will be somewhat improved. And then obviously, once the park is built, that's the next step. It'll be greatly improved.
So what is is there a short-term fix is basically what Kevin's alluding to? What can we do outside of what you said?
I think to enforce at night, if code enforcement staff is out there, they can call the sheriff themselves. Anybody can call the sheriff. And if we...
The public can call it?
The public can call the sheriff, yeah.
And I had also told Mr. Mitchell that as well, that if there's a problem with trespassers, they need to be calling the sheriff's office.
And then the sheriff will enforce because there's hours on that park, so then they'll tell them to leave?
We have standing trespass orders with the sheriff on all of our properties. And in fairness to Mr. Schmidt, too, I think I understand what he was talking about before now, and I didn't at the time. There's a window that we don't really enforce, and that is from sunset until about an hour after sunset because of the fireworks and people wanting to watch the sunset. So I do concede that, I mean, there's some, we're lenient at that point because the previous council had actually talked about, once we get this park finished, that we would go back and amend the hours of that park to an hour after sundown. So, but we didn't want to do it until the amenities were finished, so apologize.
Thank you. Just a thought, I know porta potties are not a thing to put out there because people tip them over, but is it possible, feasible to put, think Waste Management or whoever's got they're nice trailers with men and women's restrooms in them, some of them have AC. Is that an option, or, I know it's gonna take up parking places out there.
I think it's an option, Ronnie, but I think it'd be a logistical nightmare to run it with power. This is my just assumption. Anything's an option, but I just don't know if it'd be the best idea because they gotta run,
Yeah, I agree, it
would look nice.
Throw it out there and see if there was.
And it's got AC in it. People might just start hanging out in it.
Yeah, that's true. You're right.
I guarantee you they'd be sleeping in it.
All right. One last thing, and I'm done. I hate to reheart, but I went back and looked at the minutes from Mr. Destin that was referred to earlier, and it says that Councilmember Destin moved to direct city staff to work with the Destin High School in acquiring a more permanent location for the baseball facility for the Destin High School, seconded by Councilmember Wagner. And that's all it says. That's the motion in the minutes. I don't know what you read earlier. It sounded a little bit tweaked, but based off of that, I feel that everything that transpired earlier was not 100% correct with Robert's Rules of Orders and whatnot. I'm reading the minutes on our City of Destin website right now. Well, staff interpretation versus the minutes is what I'm reading. So I just feel like we did what happened earlier based upon the minutes, and I disagree with what happened. It is what it is at this point, but what I will ask is to put under my name for next meeting, the reconsideration is under her name, but I'd like to put under my name, Morgan Sports Center, Barracuda Field changes. I disagree. We can ask College chime in if he's still online, but because I don't even think we should have a reconsideration based upon the minutes that are filed with the city. Because according to the minutes, the staff did exactly what the motion said. They did exactly what the motion said, not the staff's interpretation. I can't help what happens after these meetings in the office with staff. I don't know how that works, but
For clarity's
that was
sake,
the motion. So
for clarity's sake, I'll just ask the city manager to go back and watch the video and get us.
why do we need to do
motion.
that? Why do we need to do that? There's minutes on record.
Yeah.
So, and we approved the minutes too,
All right.
but
let's
we
press
voted
on.
incorrectly on it.
But we voted, so
So anyways, I want to put this under my item for the next meeting. I can.
Well, here's my opinion on this, is that I don't know exactly the minutes versus the motion Dewey read earlier. I can't comment on that. And there are particular reconsideration rules. I believe if Teresa's motion did pass, then it could be reconsidered at the same meeting. I'd be happy to take another look at that. I'm obviously not in a good position to delve into that greatly now. But you can always let Kevin add it on, and then if it's an issue, a technical issue later, we just take it off or not address it.
Let me put it on, and if legally we're not allowed to do that, we'll just take it off in the next meeting. But for now, I'd like to put it under my name.
Don't need a motion. Just told the staff. All right, anything else? All right. Ms. Kim?
I have nothing, thank you.
Kyle?
Yeah, I think most of y'all know that I've been dealing with some personal issues the last couple of weeks. So I just wanted to thank, all of council, city staff, and Kim for being very accommodating to me in the last 2 weeks.
You're welcome, sir. You're worth it. Lastly, open up for public comment. Anybody that'd like to weigh in, come on up to the podium. You're more than welcome to do so at this time. State your name, your address, and you got 3 minutes.
I'll be way less than that. Monica Wallace, I'm the operations manager at Destin Water Users. We definitely need to be considered as part of the linear park discussions because we do have 4 large diameter lines running down the Florida Power and Light easement now. So we definitely want to be participant in that. So.
Sandy Trammell, 3823 Indian Trail. I just want to make a comment when we're talking about Noriega Point. We all know that it doesn't have a bathroom. I get that. But one thing we can be very proud of is we've never had to shut that beach down for fecal matter this year. So I think we may be blowing this out of proportion compared to every other beachfront property that we own. So yes, I think we're going to have bathrooms. I know we need them. But I think enforcing the late night issue that goes on out there would help us tremendously, especially the boats that pull up in the harbor. Because most of them are drinking. I mean, the most that I've witnessed. I won't say all of them. But anyway, thank you.
That's a whole nother issue almost. We'll tackle that after Christmas or after November 8th. All right. Anyone else? Anyone else? Last time to come on up and make public comment? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.